We never actually got around to what we were going to ask in terms of the college football fix, and we may stretch this into tomorrow even in terms of question marks in spring practice. So let's start here in the state of Mississippi. What is the question that needs to be answered? What is the question that you are curious about as it pertains to Mike Leach's Mississippi State team?
Can they be more explosive offensively? I know they can move the chains. I know they can put together long drives. You know, I have faith in their ability to do that. I think they can run the football.
Hold on, press pause, though. Hold on, press pause. That's what we want to know about the 2022 season.
Right.
What do we want to know that we can potentially learn from spring ball?
Oh. Who the tackles are? I mean, that's the biggest question. Yeah, who's stepping in for Cross and Lashley? I think it's going to be Percy Lewis on the left, and maybe the redshirt freshman Albert Reese on the right. But I won't be totally surprised if they dip back into the portal when the second round of transfers starts happening after spring practices wrap up across the country. I think Lewis is going to be that guy, though. That's what they recruited him for. They recruited him to be a day one starter when you're the nation's top-rated JUCO tackle. They expect big things from you. And he's come in and gotten those first-team reps. I feel pretty confident that he's going to be the guy there. He's not going to be as good as Charles Cross. You know, you just need to go ahead. State's going to give up some sacks from the backside this year. It's going to happen. But can he be good enough? Yeah, I think so.
Borky, do you have a question for Mississippi State that you think could be answered in the spring?
Yeah, it's all about protection. I mean, there's so much conversation that we can have about this team and this offense and taking the step forward and being more consistent. And like Haydad said, explosive plays were just not part of the offense last year. They were not an explosive offense at all. Didn't score from long distances basically ever. It just wasn't a thing. And part of that was because of protection. Even with the soon-to-be first-round pick, they didn't protect Rodgers well enough. So many people, Rodgers stinks. He doesn't go through his progressions. I saw a lot of that during the Egg Bowl. Rodgers is so bad. He's just staring down receivers. He didn't have time to look at option 2 or 3 or 4. There wasn't time to go through progressions. That's the thing, is can they protect and who will be doing the protecting and can they be viable? Because it's not just replacing those two guys. The entire offensive line has to get better at protection. Because if they're not, there's no use in having the Rodgers next step conversation, or will this wide receiver replace Mekhi Polk, because it won't matter. And an offense where you throw the ball 65 times a game, if you can't protect your quarterback, none of those questions matter. That's the spring for Mississippi State. Left tackle, right tackle. That is the spring.
Greg goes with a different angle. And this is an interesting one to me. He says culture, culture, culture. Greg, I need you to give me a little more. What are you looking for there?
I don't see a lot of cracks in the foundation for culture-wise at Mississippi State right now.
3 years ago, different story.
Yes, different story.
So, Greg, are you talking about toughness, or are you talking about internal leadership? You got to give me a little bit more than just culture, because I'm fascinated with where you're trying to go with that. Borky, same question for Ole Miss.
The easy answer is quarterback. It's linebacker to me. You had 2 portal guys, essentially. Mark Robinson's not your typical Lane Kiffin portal get. I mean, he was a running back at SEMO who came to Ole Miss to play linebacker because of Otis Reese. A unique story there. But for the first time in what feels like forever, I mean, since I've been doing media, if that's what you call what I do, Ole Miss has stunk at linebacker. Even the years where they had one pretty good one, linebacker has been a position of bad depth and weakness for what feels like ever, but at least since 2014. Last year was not the case. They had 2 really, really good, reliable, sure tacklers, good in being in the right place linebackers with Chance Campbell and Mark Robinson. They are gone. And that's the question for me. I saw that they offered a portal guy from Middle Tennessee. I've heard that they're not really thrilled with their depth at the position. Now, Keys is not practicing. Him returning will help. He showed some promise last year, physically looks the part. But it can't be overstated how good Campbell and Robinson were for that team last year. They were exceptional linebackers, and they're gone.
Really good.
So who is it going to be, and are they good enough to fill that role? Because defensive line and secondary should be quite good for that team next year. Will they be good enough at linebacker in the absence of those two guys is the biggest question this spring.
I'll stay on that side of the ball, but we'll go with a different position. Replacing Sam Williams. Because you had a true go-get-the-quarterback, game-changing guy in Sam Williams that every offense that you face had to account for. And I don't know if you remember way back in like the second week of August when we were talking about, hey, who could be a surprise player that emerges on the team? I told you I had talked to someone with the team who was kind of in and around them and watched all the practices and had told me Cedric Johnson. It's a guy that and he had his moments a year ago, but because Sam Williams was so good, maybe didn't see the field as much, wasn't as much of an impact player. I'm interested to see if there's a step forward, if there is a ability to replicate the numbers or come close to replicating the numbers that Sam Williams produced in terms of putting pressure on and getting to the quarterback and getting him down. Now, Sam Williams set a single-season sack record. So are you going to replicate that? I don't know that you'll be able to do that. But I'm curious if Cedric Johnson takes a big step forward. We get another message here on the C Spire text line that says Ole Miss has a ton of questions to answer. I mean, take your pick. Coaching staff, quarterback, wide receiver, linebacker, secondary. I mean, running backs and offensive line seem okay, but the offensive line could struggle.
That might...
Tough to answer those in the spring, though.
There's a chance that the offensive line is one of their strongest position groups. What do you mean they might struggle? I'm confused. They lose Umana, who was not great a year ago, and they replace him with a 3-year starting transfer. I mean, it's as stable and solid as a position group as you could hope for coming back.
Well, you just said that there's a chance they could be the strongest group. That implies that there's a chance they couldn't be either.
I guess, but the sample size with what you have returning is pretty stout.
Like I would say about Mississippi State, like offensively, I'd say their wide receivers will be their strongest group. I wouldn't say there's a chance because that's what I think is going to be the strongest group. I think running back will be the strongest group for Ole Miss. Evans and Bennett look like, I mean, they haven't taken an SEC carry, but they look like the top of the line prospects.
They do. I just feel like with all of the activity in the transfer portal, I mean, Ole Miss hit the lottery in the transfer portal last year in terms of guys stepping in and producing and fitting into the locker room and all of those things. And you got to hope that happens. The guy like Zach Evans, who has drama in his past. And you hope that's – I just wanted to think about what the right word was there just for a second.
Drama is a fine word, yes.
He's had drama in his past. And you hope that there's a maturity factor that's there and he steps in and stays healthy and he's a great producer. There are some people that are pointing to wide receiver as being a big question that needs to be answered.
You saw what happened last year without two guys that are now off the team.
Yeah.